Good morning, everybody. Today we're going to be doing Notes 8.2, Identify Angles and the Relationship in Parallel Lines. That's what that symbol means. And now if you think back to your middle school days, when you thought about it, parallel lines, it was basically two lines that would never intersect or never cross with each other. So here, for instance, if I stretch out line M more and more and line N, because they're running in the same direction, they are considered parallel lines because they never meet or cross. Now, in order for us to work with some of these angles, we should review what we did in section 8.1. And so we're going to talk about how to set them up. We won't completely solve for x, but just talking about the setup. When we're looking at this angle, notice they gave me this angle here, which is an acute angle. It's less than 90. But then they gave me this angle over here right next to it that measures 130. And so one of the things that we needed to remember from our past is the fact that when you have angles that are side by side like this, we know that they're together are going to add up and make 180 degrees when we see a mark like this. And so the idea is they are supplementary. So 2x plus 8 plus the 130 are going to make 180 degrees. And then we would take the steps to solve for it and so forth. Now, the other one that we need to look at is number 2. Again, we're just going to set it up. We're not going to solve it. When we look at number 2, we see, all right, well, I have this angle here between these two lines. And then the 50 is also between the same two lines, but they're not side by side like these were. See, when they're side by side and they make that straight line, that's when the 180 comes up. But if these two are right across from each other, they're not going to make 180, but these are vertical angles. And when you have vertical angles, we said all I have to do is make them equal to each other, because that's what we do with vertical angles. They are equal to each other, while supplementary, they added up to 180. Now, again, we were just using that as a review. The reason for that is we want to start looking at this line, or these 3 sets of lines here, and all the angles that they create. So once again, from the looks of it, these 2 lines never cross, and so we can say that they're parallel to each other. And just so you know, in geometry, we'll learn more about this, where if you have 2 parallel lines, we can use a little symbol, which is this. It's like a little arrowhead, and it represents the fact that these 2 lines are parallel. They're running in the same direction, which means they're never going to cross. But if you notice, there is another line that we're dealing with here, and with this other line, they're using the letter T. We're going to see this vocab word show up in a little bit. But because of this line, look at all the angles we created. And so now the idea is, okay, well, with all these angles, they only gave me one of them. Check this out. They said angle 2 is going to be 50 degrees. Okay, well, you know what? I'm going to go in there and I'm going to put that number in for angle 2. They said this is 50. But now we're going to use what we talked about up here. Right? Vertical angles are equal to each other. Supplementary ones add up to 180. So if you're thinking about angle 2, well, look, angle 2 and angle 4 are vertical angles. They're right across from each other. So that means this angle right here should also be 50 degrees. So angle 4 can also get that 50. Now, if I want to find angle 1, now angle 1 is definitely not 50. But look how they're side by side, right? Check this out. Here's the original 50, and this one is right next to it. Well, remember what we said, when these 2 angles are next to each other and they form a straight line, then angle 1 and angle 2 are going to make 180. So angle 1 plus angle 2 are going to make 180. But since I already know that angle 2 is 50, see a little bit of math here, not too bad. Let's subtract out 50 from both sides, and look, just like that, we already found it. Angle 1 is 130. Look, landed perfectly right next to it. So now we know this one is 130 degrees. And remember about vertical angles. That's a great thing about vertical angles. If this one is 130, well, then this one is 130. And just like that, we have 2 vertical angles that are equal to each other. So look at this. This is also 130. Now, you might say, well, yeah, okay, that's great for those. But now the question is, well, how am I going to find these 4 down here? Here's the beauty of what we're going to learn in this week about parallel lines. When you have parallel lines and you have found all 4 of these angles, you have actually found these 4 angles as well. Remember, they're parallel to each other. They're running in the same direction, which means the red angles 1 and 3 will be the same as 5 and 7. Why? Look at that. They're in the same location, same spot. We like to call that corresponding, another word that's going to come up right now. So this one's 130, and look at that. This one has to be 130 also. And not just that, of course, because these lines are running in the same direction and they're hitting the same green line, then angle 6 is also 50, just like number 2, because they're in the same location, same spot, which means angle 8, also in the same spot as angle 4, would also be a 50. That's the great thing about parallel lines and a line that goes through them. It's called the transversal. We end up creating all these angles that are equal or congruent to each other, as we say in geometry. And so that's what we're going to be talking about. And for today, the main purpose is we're going to do the name game. And that's the next thing you see there. The name game just means, all right, we're going to throw some angles at you, and you're going to give it the name that corresponds to it. And we're going to practice that at the end here. Again, this is part 1 of Notes 8.2 that you're working on today. So let's see, here we go. Now that way we can still see this picture. So here's our first vocab word for the day. It's called a transversal, so have your highlighters ready. It is a line that passes through 2 or more distinct lines, which means if you look at all these 4 lines right here, there's only one of them that can be a transversal, and the only transversal we have here is T. T is the transversal. Why? Because it's making contact with not just 2, it says through 2 or more. This one's making contact with 3 of them. So it says line T is the transversal, since it passes through line A, B, and C. And it looks like the A was left out for some reason. We'll only highlight that part, but it passes through line A, and there you go, B and C. Okay, so a transversal is any line that hits or crosses 2 or more lines. But then we have this, the concept of corresponding. Now, remember how we were saying, hey, things that are in the same spot, right? Like when we were talking about this one, I said, hey, number 6 is the same as number 2. Why? They're in the same spot. Look at that. They were the top right corner in this little group of 4. Same thing here. When I'm looking at these 2 lines, now notice, here's that transversal again, right? There's the letter T for transversal. But the idea is, when I'm looking at this angle is in the same spot. That little square is too big. That angle is in the exact same spot as this one right here with the parallel lines. Look at that. This is what we mean. Being in the same spot or same location. Now, that's not the only one. I could have done this top one with this top one, or this bottom one with this bottom one. But that's the idea. That's what we mean by corresponding, to be in the exact same location. But there's more. Now, alternate. Now, when you have alternates, we have opposite sides of a transversal. And so in this case, here's that transversal again. In fact, I'm going to take a moment and highlight the transversal for all of these. So the transversal's right there, right here as well. So there's the transversal. We use the same color for all of them there. Now, when they say alternate, it says opposite side of the transversal. So that means if you have something on this side, then you need to pick something. The other one has to be from this side. So we're going to make that little note. It's 1 from each side. Okay. So very different than here, right? If you think of it, corresponding, they were kind of on the same side of the transversal, but they also had to be in the same location within these 4. Now, consecutive. Now, consecutive means both angles come from the same side. So in this case, we're just using this as an example, but what they're saying is, look at that. They have to come from the same side. So both angles are on the same side. Ooh, just ran out of room there. So both angles are on the same side. Okay. And then we get into this whole other topic of angles that are interior and angles that are exterior, right? Interior says they are inside the parallel lines. Another way of thinking about that is they are between the parallel lines. So we can say that they are between. And now remember, the parallel lines are here, right? If I'm looking at this picture, these are the parallel lines. So let's highlight them here as well. Oh, there we go. And those are the little arrowheads there. They could point in any direction. But there you go. Those are my parallel lines. So if they're between the blue lines that I have here, we would say they're interior. If they're outside the blue lines, that's when we say, okay, they go by a different name. These are called exterior angles in this case. So the exterior angles can be on the outside here. And like I said, one of the biggest things that you're going to be doing in today's assignment is, of course, saying, oh, are they interior, are they exterior? And then which one of these does it belong to? Is it a corresponding, alternate, or consecutive? Now, the best way to show you is here's pretty much our only example, but I'm going to pull some other ones from another set of problems that we have just to practice. So look, here's our example. Use the bolded words above or previous terms you have learned to come up with the names for these sets of angles. So it's going to get a little bit messy, but look, here is once again the transversal. Now, first question, they said angle 1 and angle 7. Okay, well, let's look at angle 1. So we mark things, and that's the thing. You got to learn to mark them. We mark angles with a little curve. So there's angle 1, and there's angle 7. So now, this is what I like to start off with first. Interior or exterior? Just remember, look, I'm going to take a little moment and color this in. This is what we call our interior. So this is interior. Anything over here would be exterior as well as here. So you see right off the bat, I noticed one thing. This angle's on the exterior. This angle's on the exterior. So I know that's going to be part of the name. So this is an exterior set of angles. Notice how I make it the second word, not the first word. Because now I need to decide, all right, well, are they corresponding? Are they alternate? Or are they consecutive? Now remember, corresponding means they have to be in the same spot. So first of all, look at this one. If I look at this angle, just at these four, let me cover the ones at the bottom. This angle is the top left angle. So if that's the case, which one is the top left angle? Number 5 is the top left angle, not number 7. So no, these are definitely not corresponding. They're not in the same spot. So now the question is, are they alternate? Now remember, excuse me, remember what that means. It means it's one from each side of the transversal. Well, that's why I like using my little card here. Look at this. See, only one of my angles is on this side of the orange line. And when I cover this side up, only one of the angles is on this side of the orange line. So yes, these are definitely alternate exterior angles. That's what we're looking at right here. All right, let's keep this thing going. Look, now they have a different question for me. They said, all right, well, what about number 4 and number 8? So angle 4 and angle 8. All right, let me see. I'm going to mark it in red this time. There's angle 4, and here's angle 8. Now notice in this one here, right? If I ask you, are they both interior? No, this one isn't. Are they both exterior? No, this one isn't. Then I'll tell you right now, there's no way that it can be alternate, and there's no way that it can be consecutive. There's only one that we have where we have one interior and one exterior. And look at that. We're going to come back up here and notice this is an exterior. This one was an interior. So you see it's a mix, it's a blend, and that doesn't happen with these down here. This is an exterior and this is an interior. Exterior, interior, and look at that. If I block this out, this angle is bottom left. And if I block out the top part, let's not look at those 4. Look at that. This is also the bottom left. So these two, number 4 and number 8, are in the exact same spot. They're in the same location, which makes it corresponding. Notice how there's only room for one word. That's because that's because interior and exterior don't belong here. When you say corresponding, you can't say interior, exterior, because it's one of each. So whenever you say interior, exterior, it's because both angles are interior or both angles are exterior. Okay. All right. Next one. Let's change the color up here. Angle 3 and angle number 5. So angle 3 and angle number 5. So we're going to mark them. So here's angle number 3 and here's angle number 5. Now notice, right off the bat, the first thing I notice is this. They're both in yellow, which means they're both interior. That's why, look, it has 2 spaces. I get to give it the interior name. So they're both interior, which means corresponding is out. Remember, this is one of each, right? So now I know it's going to be one of these two. All right, it's time to cover it up. Let's look at angle 3. All right, angle 3, yep. I don't see angle 5 over here, so angle 3 is on this side. Angle 5 is on this side. Remember, I'm only doing 3 and 5 right now. Then, yeah, I have one on one side, one on the other. Then these are once again alternate. But this time, instead of being alternate exterior, they're alternate interior. Completely different. All right, 2 more to go. Number 5 and number 7. Now, if I'm looking at an angle 5 and angle number 7, okay, it's starting to get a little messy here. We might need some darker colors here. So angle 5 and angle 7. Hey, this is a throwback here. Notice how they're part of the same little group of 4. When they're part of the same group of 4, that means it's none of these new ones. It must be an old concept of ours. And yes, look at this. They're right across from each other, not next to each other, right? 5 and 8, 5 and 6, those would be next to each other. But nah, these are right across from each other, which means it's the one that we saw earlier. These are vertical angles. So they might throw that in there once in a while. I don't think we'll see it much. It might show up in your classwork. We'll see. 1 more to go. And for this last one, it says, let's talk about angle 4 and angle number 5. So here's angle 4 again. All right, but we already have a color there. So let's try to see if we can give it something else. Okay, so here's angle 4 and angle 5. Okay, so angle 5 has really been used a lot. Okay, but let's look at them. Hey, what do you notice? Look, they're both interior. They're both in that yellow. So right away, I'm going to give it the name of interior. So this one got a little bit messy, but look, we have interior. And now the question is, are they alternate or are they consecutive? Remember, alternate means one on each side of the orange line, or consecutive means they're both on the same side. Remember, we're looking at number 4 and number 5. So where's my trusty Metro card here? So if I'm looking at angle 4 and angle 5, look at that. I see them both. So the fact that I see them both is because they're on the same side. And if they're on the same side, look what it says here. Same side means these are consecutive. And that's what you're doing on today's assignment. Today's assignment, you're just kind of playing the name game, trying to figure out whether or not these angles are consecutive, alternate, or corresponding. Again, this is only part 1 of your assignment. And your assignment is going to ask you these questions about, hey, what kind of angles are they? And so I'll tell you right now that when you're working on problems like this, let me show you one last part here. This will be a classwork eventually, but I want to show you now with some of these. Here we go. See, classifying. That's what you're going to be doing for today. Not this page, but just to show you. Look, 3 and 6. 3 and 6. And when you look carefully, see, they're right in between, right? This would be the interior, but the angles that I marked are not in the yellow. So that means I would say they are exterior. But now the question is, well, what kind? Well, let's see. Bring in something to block it out. It helps. If I block out the transversal, look, I only see one of my angles. So only one of them is on this side. The other one is on the other. Then these would be alternate exterior. I'm just going to cut it short and leave it like that. So that's the kind of thing you're going to be doing on your assignment. Your assignment is on quizzes for today. Tomorrow you will do the second part of these notes. But for now, this is part one. So make sure you copy it into your notebook, into your packet, and then upload a picture. Have a wonderful day, everybody.